I'm Bonnie Robeson. I'm with the Carey School of Business at Johns Hopkins University. And so I'm going to talk about mainly what can we do differently to become better teachers that AI is giving us that opportunity to do. So let me just go ahead and get started. So I think we want to design and be authentic in our learning experience. We want to encourage critical thinking. We want to be creative, and we want to be responsible use of AI. So you're going to hear several themes that we've heard already today, and kind of try to tie that together. So we already know AI is being used. It's going to be used even more. And some research has shown that over 85% of students use generative AI tools to do their school. Also, how do they use them? Well, they use them for a thinking companion to brainstorm, for example. They use them to summarize complex concepts, to write their papers and reports. You really don't want them to write them, but maybe help them improve on them. Research topics. We also know that AI can hallucinate. So how can they evaluate the research and to analyze data? I looked at some research by the American Library Association, the American Research Libraries, and they did some research here to show that how are AI tools being used. Well, they discussed the fair use and rights of AI tools. They discussed with their people using their library copyright and plagiarism issues. They warn about AI privacy and security risks. They use statements to encourage human involvement in evaluating and fact-checking AI-generated content. I'm not going to go through all of them. The last one is democratize access by offering at least one AI resource. So that's what's going on there. What are policies at universities for using AI? Well, we can see that they had a small sample size, but they found that 35.7% allow AI for brainstorming and outlining only. Also, about 36% allow AI with disclosure and citations required. 14% have no clear institutional rules on the use of AI. 7% fully allow and encourage AI use. Little else than that. And about 5% of universities say prohibit AI entirely. So I'm sure this was 2025, so this is pretty recent data, but we know this is going to be changing. So I kind of took a backward approach, and I'm in the business school, graduate level, and why do students go back to get advanced degrees? And I looked at about probably 5 reasons. They want to develop expertise in a specific discipline. Maybe they want to get promoted and move up the ladder where they are presently working. Maybe they want to complete career change. They want increased earning power, or they want to be an academic career. And of course, the academic careers, we always have to increase our education. How are we presently assessing our students in our classes? Well, written exams, oral exams, practicums, residencies, and of course, all of these are going to depend on the discipline. And then theses and dissertations based on original research. So then I thought about what are employers looking for? When our students go out there and they finish their degrees to get a job, what are these skill sets? Obviously, they're expecting them to know their discipline. That's a given. But they also are looking for problem solvers, effective communicators, and we've heard that brought up before already today. They have to be able to communicate. Also, they're looking for people that are team players that can collaborate and work together as a team. They want them to be able to question things. How can they formulate and question and ask about what their tasks are or how they're about to do it? And then, of course, those critical thinking skills we've also heard mentioned already. So I want to go over some things we can do. Many of you are probably already doing these or have done them in the past. They're going to apply differently to different subject matter and disciplines. But I want to talk about the flipped classroom, problem-solving assignments, activity-based learning, using a pecha, and also experiential learning practicums. And so again, there's different techniques and they're going to apply differently. So let's first talk about the flipped classroom. We know we no longer want to be what we call the sage on the stage. We don't want to be up there lecturing to the students. And where we just lecture, give them assignments, give them homework, grade the assignment, did they listen, did they understand? But instead, we use a flipped classroom. You record your lectures. They listen to them before coming to class. They do the readings before coming to class. And then in class, you use that for either individual work or group work to solve a particular problem. So you flip it, or to have discussions in their small groups or in a class. Another is problem solving. Now, I've divided out problem solving from activity-based. Often they're pretty much similar, but they can be thought of a little bit as two different things. So in problem solving, this is student-centered. This is active learning, and where students would have to use some critical thinking skills that they previously learned. And often you want to use real-life problems. So I know in business school, a lot of us use case studies. You can use them in other classes too. But in a case study, would be problem solving. What's the problem the organization's having? How do they evaluate the written material, come up with alternatives, and approach how to solve. You can also do problem solving with math problems. Again, you could try to build models, mathematical models together to solve a problem. And their students are helping each other and they're learning from each other. So it's, again, very interactive. So they have to empathize with the user when they're doing the problem solving. They have to kind of put themselves in the shoes of the case study CEO or whatever. And they have to think also, what is the information that I need to gather to do a good job? Now, AI could be used for this part. They need to very clearly define the problem. And I often find that students will have problems with really getting down to one concise sentence to define the problem they're trying to solve. And I often will say to them, President Kennedy said, we're going to land a man on the moon and return him to Earth safely within the next 10 years. Very concise example of what they were going to do. If you go into, we have to train astronauts, we have to build missiles. Those are goals that have to be done to solve that problem, but you have the exact problem very, very clearly stated. Then they have to think about alternatives and ways to approach the problem, and then evaluate these. And it is an iterative process where they have to work together and then refine and adjust the solutions. Now, activity-based can be a little bit different in that it doesn't necessarily have to be solving a problem, but can just be doing a task. So they are using actively constructing knowledge through learning by doing, rather than passively listening or to a lecture. So again, I've used some of these techniques in various classes. One can be playing the role as a negotiator. How do you negotiate the situation? So in business school, we have a negotiations class. So you can pit two together and they have to negotiate, come to terms. You can debate a controversial topic. I even use this on online discussions. Do you use animals for research, or do we want to get completely away from using animals in research? So you can have a controversial topic and have them engage in a discussion. Obviously, if you're doing science-based, you're going to have a lab. It's going to be experiential. It's going to be an activity. I know we have another whole section on gamification. And this is another technique, gamification. You can also try to create some juices, activity and creative juices, and have them do an infographic. And this again helps them try to organize complex information and put it in a visual. The one I have to feature here is a person's resume. Looks very different than what we think of as resume, but it's effective. Talks about me, contact, your education, their specialty, their awards. So again, it's kind of a unique way. And you can do this, you can do an infographic with many things. Sometimes it's a summative activity for a course. Any of you heard about Pechakucha? I see some head shaking, yes. So this was a technique developed in Japan. And I've actually used this in a course as well. And I'll tell you why this can be important. It limits the presentation to 6 minutes and 40 seconds. It's 20 slides, only with images, and little or no words. And each slide, 20 seconds per slide. Now, why this is important is that presentations can sometimes put people to sleep. You have lots of words. Your mind wanders around. But this is visual. It's only pictures. And we know that pictures can leave lasting impressions, and it's kind of infuses information in packets. And we can understand and remember pictures better than we can a lot of words. It also helps very much with organizing thoughts. So it really activates many areas of the brain in trying to do a Pechakucha. It enhances your meticulous organization because you don't have much time. And so you really have to curate your material. You really have to understand what's that take-home message you want them to remember. Also, it helps them to organize their thoughts in a very logical way. And very concise. Often you can use it for synthesizing complex information in a narrative way. Learning to think visually and use imagery to enhance understanding. It evokes emotion, and that maintains your audience attention. This is very effective, again, in honing those communication skills. And I have heard people tell me, when I've talked about Pechakuchas, that it's very good to use when students are using a different language than their native language. It helps them to learn their second language better. And then because you have to carefully choose those words. And sometimes I'll relate to them, it's like money. You want to spend the least money to get the most impact. So you don't have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of words, and yet you have to get that message. So I would use this technique when I would do business leadership and doing that response. So again, different methods work better in different types of classes. Now, those are the benefits to the presenter, what they have to learn and what skills they're honing. But it's also benefits the audience. So instead of being engaged in words and now your audience is more focused, it delivers key concepts, it's digestible and efficient in a very efficient manner. And the audience receives concentrated doses of information, what we call these little packets of information in the pictures. What I want to finish with and go into in a little more depth is what I do is experiential learning practically. And at Carey, we have an office for experiential learning. So we're really injecting it into almost every discipline that we have. I teach the healthcare strategy practice. And we do this, our sessions at Carey are 8 weeks, but I do this over 2 consecutive 8-week periods. And so this is project-based. We work with third parties. We have different projects every session, every semester. And so this could apply their business knowledge and skills because they're working with a real life problem. It embraces complexity. We're learning how to communicate within their team as well as with their client. So they have communication skills they have to develop in many levels. And again, they're using that creative problem solving. So what our goals are for this course is we want them to be able to size up quickly and accurately complex, unstructured situations by identifying that core problem and issue in their healthcare setting. They often have to analyze quantitative descriptive data to identify strategies which are appropriate to each situation, evaluate alternatives, and recommend specific actions for creative solutions to their problem. Sometimes they have to design surveys, sometimes they have to collect information, or they're getting very detailed information from the organization's database. They have to select and apply appropriate business tools. So we've already covered in part one of the course is very content oriented. And then part two, they get introduced to their partners in the first part, but then the second part, they do their consulting work. So they have to figure out what types of tools are most useful for this particular project. And so they analyze their case studies in healthcare space and helps them hone their thinking skills. We're very careful about teaming. We don't let them select the project or their team. We put the teams together. And this is so because we want to get as much diversity within the team as possible. Gender diversity, domestic, international students diversity. And I did fail to say that we do this online. We started out doing experiential learning on site, but now we've been doing it online and it's been very successful. So we mix them together, even though they may be in different time zones. We say we're living in a global business environment. This is where you get to practice. How are you going to communicate across geographic boundaries, time zone boundaries, etc. So these are real life problems that our partners are having. And then they have to build that engagement and produce productive work. They want to come up with innovative ideas to solve their problems. And then at the end, they deliver a report to the client with their recommendations. Again, here we're getting that communication involved. And so we have the teaming. They have to understand the context. They have to establish this engagement, the innovation, and end up with a deliverable that they provide to their client. Now, the components that we feel are so important in what we do is it's team-based, because very often today, our students go out, no matter how smart they are, they have to work in a team. They have to work collectively. They have to be able to communicate. So it's team-based. It's project-sponsored. There's some challenges that they run into. They have to deal with data, and they have a timeline. And so that's where we pick projects and clients that we know can be done within 2 8-week sessions. This is problems that they have here. Number one, they're working with ambiguity. It's real life. And so we also do reflections, and one of the reflections they do is on how did you work with ambiguity? Because no matter how much we know those textbooks and learn that material in the textbook, you go after that real life job, it's not the same. So being able to handle ambiguity is important. They're put into unfamiliar contexts, and we do this by making sure that all the students got very detailed backgrounds about themselves, their work, their years of work. And we mix it up as much as possible and make sure they're not particularly put into the same project as what they do every day at work. Because what are they going to learn from that? It helps them learn how to build relationships. like I said, we have them do reflections. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But one of those reflections is, how does it feel to work with ambiguity? They get a lot of feedback, and again, they can see that what their work is going to provide is going to be an impact to their client at the end. I think we've all seen this one probably before, and this is our project-based experiential learning. So I think that I'm going to go ahead and skip that. But I wanted to get to this one. In our Carey Business School, we have some core competencies that we expect the students to learn along the way. And this is a growth mindset, that we never stop growing and learning. We have another one which is an innovative perspective. Leadership, empathy, and resilience. So again, these are human qualities and experiences they can get in an experiential course. So very often their projects don't go as they planned. At the end of part one, they have a plan on what they're going to do. After they understand the project, are they going to collect data? Are they going to go on site? And do they need to analyze something? What do they need to do? And things fall apart. They do a survey, they got to get a handful of results, submissions. So what do they do to be resilient? Because we all have to be resilient all the time. So they get to practice resilience. Also, they get to practice leadership. Where did you miss an opportunity to lead where you could have led and you didn't? And again, empathy, to think that we have to, again, expose them to being understanding that everybody's different. They come from different backgrounds. How do you express and understand empathy? Empathy for your client when they don't have time to meet with you. Empathy with your teammates who end up having illness. So what are you going to do? You're going to cover for them? You're going to get mad at them? You wouldn't have to think we have to cover some of these things, but this gives them an opportunity to realize what some of these factors are in the real world and when they're working those jobs. So we have a lot of reflections on all of these different things. We also go over with them to be aware of what we call the 5 dysfunctions of the team. And this is another one of those assignments they do that they repeat. Do you have absence of trust? Did you trust your teammates? Are you all just acting real nice to each other because you don't want to have conflict? Can't do that. How are you going to handle conflict? What kind of conflict is it? You have somebody in your team who's not committed. You're doing all the work and you feel they're just kind of hanging out. How do you make everybody accountable? And attention to detail. So these are some of the things we say, be on the lookout. And we have them write a team contract at the very beginning. Part 2, they can revise that contract, and then also they can reevaluate how their team is working together as the team. So we use Cobb's model. Again, you have a concrete experience. You reflect on what happened with that team meeting with the client. How did it go? You plan for it, you conduct it. What happened afterwards? And how can you improve that interaction and asking better questions or asking questions too? So it's iterative, and they learn this project to go over again. So it's a popular class. We originally ran it 1 semester in the spring semester. We now run it 2 semesters, spring and fall. It's always, I limit it to 4 projects, 16 students, because again, when they break out to their teams, it's like having 4 different classes, following each team, giving them some assistance. And so it's always a wait list. We can always, because we are Johns Hopkins, we have our medical center there. And so we have a lot of projects from internal projects, but we also have worked with a hospital in Lithuania. We've worked with a doctor in Singapore. We've worked with a mental health clinic in Rwanda. So again, we don't let geographical boundaries, limit us in what we can do. So thank you. And those are some things we can again do to be more interactive and AI is fine, but this teaches them to use it appropriately, but yet get those real life. Thank you.